Your Creative Push, Episode 23.
Do exactly what you want to do, what you want to see, right? Like be the change, like Gandhi. Create what you think the world needs. Just do it.
Welcome to Your Creative Push. This is the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I am your host, Youngman Brown, and today's episode is part 2 of my conversation with Alex Cherry. If you missed yesterday's episode, you can just scroll back in your podcast player, or you can head to yourcreativepush.com/22. Alex and I had a great conversation so far, and I think you're really going to like the conclusion of our conversation. Yesterday, we left off talking about copyright, so I will get out of the way and just get back into the interview. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it inspires you.
How would we ever have Chipotle if somehow, Taco Bell had copyrighted rice and beans? You know what I mean? We kill. I think that's a part of America's thing where we have to learn that. I think we're the proprietors of copyright, really, right? It's in America that people are sue happy, and and that's what we haven't learned, is that we're not. That's sort of like weed killer. Like you're sort of killing all the grass in your lawn, by accident, by putting too much. What is that? Poison, whatever,
Yeah.
We're not fertilizing. You're just killing our lawn, and so it doesn't cultivate a healthy culture. I mean, you think I was talking to somebody the other day, and they had this. There was this idea. This philosopher had created this idea of something called the Venus Project. It was like a way to live without money, and it's this totally ambitious, project where there's like alternate society or whatever. And I didn't think about any of that. I know that money is something that people have. That's a big problem to figure out. I'm not going to figure that one out. But what I did think about was the title, the Venus Project. And I thought, what's so funny about that is that, Venus is something that character, that god, doesn't belong to anyone. It's a planet, it's a god, it's a TV show, it's this and that, it's a deodorant, it's whatever, But Luke Skywalker belongs to Disney.
Well,
what happens
now it belongs to Disney.
Right. So what happens when somebody wants to, call something the Skywalker this and that, You can't, because it belongs to these people. And so we're just, what you're going to see, and we're already seeing in this world filled with, really ambitious startups, is you're starting to see the same kind of names and directions used over and over. And it's happened with domain names, right? Where it's like, who cares anymore?
Yeah.
What your domain name is or what the name of your company is, because we've used every word in the language, and there's nothing new to take from because of copyright, so we find ourselves going back to these old ideas of like, well, there's Venus, here's like Hercules or Athena or whatever. I mean, it's like these old ideas. And what's really funny is that I talked to you earlier about going to Europe and Italy. And when I was in Rome, I saw these statues of these gods, and I thought, what's so funny about this is that in the time that the statue was created, that is no different than let's say, Obama building a giant statue of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's no different. I mean, it's a fictional guy with a lot of muscles who like punches people really hard. And it's funny how like time adds this kind of pretentious quality that we sort of separate it. We think, no, but this is like, that's Hercules, and this Spider-Man's like, it's not as cool, but really,
right.
No, Hercules and Spider-Man are the same guy. It's like, it's the same exact thing.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing, like, to put yourself back there, like the mentality of being back there during that time, and just seeing this like brand new statue being built, and like, I don't know, perhaps like snubbing your nose at it, like, oh, like Hercules is so last
Yeah.
year, like or like something like that.
Yeah,
But
right,
yeah,
right.
you're right.
Who are they comparing it to? And 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 they controlled the masses. They commanded people with these figures the same way that people go out to see the latest movie of a certain franchise, Star Wars or Spider-Man, whatever. Not that I'm saying anything bad about those, but it's just interesting how, you know, you control or you command an audience with these figures, and but the idea is that they originally had no ownership, whereas today they do, and how that's going to affect future generations is really interesting to think about. And I think that the people that created both of those kinds of the people whoever thought of Hercules and whoever thought of Batman. Well, I mean, we know who that is. It's Bob Kane and another guy who totally doesn't get enough credit, and I forget his name. They just didn't think about it. It was just something, like we talked about earlier, it was a spontaneous thing. Maybe they even don't like those characters. Maybe they liked, Aquaman better, but he never got the attention that Batman did. There's something about it that strikes a chord with us. And they didn't think about it, and that's somehow has this magical quality that lasts forever. And it's that fifth dimensional.
Yeah, you got to tap into it.
But it goes with what you're saying about nurturing creativity and putting yourself out there. Because you think, what if Hercules was never a thing? What if Macbeth was never written? What if he thought it was too similar to some other play or something? You just don't. It's not your job to think about that. And the best cure for that is just to go out and look at the rest of the world. Just get outside of your world for a minute. Diversity is really, and not diversity as in like different cultures or people, but just diversity in thought. Really, just thinking about different things.
Right.
Look at like just think about something that you're completely not used to thinking about. Get outside of your usual routine and immerse yourself in that just for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Just think about something you don't normally think about, and you will have an idea that will add value to what you normally do. You can bring that back into your routine and figure something out. I mean, that is the number one way that I've grown creatively. It's interesting, like my interests in when I started my career, where it was like Pokemon and Ninja Turtles, and now my interests are like palm trees. Like, and it's like really it's that rudimentary, it's that like abstract, it's like a different thing. But then how I can take my taste for something like plants and apply that back into the world of Pokemon and Ninja Turtles, that becomes really interesting. That makes my interpretation of Ninja Turtles or David Bowie more interesting than, say, maybe somebody else's.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, when they are first starting out, like you said, like perhaps immersing themselves in that type of thing, like, and maybe doing it daily, like I think that's important too, is to not just like go to a museum or something like once and kind of just walk around and then be inspired and then like kind of like, all right, that was my Sunday, like let's go back to work. It's like kind of like incorporating that into your life. I think it's a lot of times it's like really the struggle is thinking big ideas. Like you get a big idea, or like,
mm-hmm.
and like you said, to be able to not worry about where it's going to take you, and just to kind of like let it take its course that way, and not be afraid to like have like this huge end goal. It's like it's all about like the first goal of like first starting out and first doing it, and then kind of just seeing where it takes you. And it almost definitely will take you somewhere completely different, like to palm trees, like you said.
Yeah, but and that takes courage.
Yeah,
that takes like that is the hardest thing.
Could you maybe take us back to like your worst moment creatively?
Ooh, I tend to I try to block those out in a way, or I try to not focus on those kind of things. But I had one recently where we talk about copying. And so my workflow is this: every few months I send new work to my manager, and he goes through them and he picks the ones he likes, and then he sells those as prints. And what's very interesting is how, what he picks versus what I like and versus what I think he'll pick. It's always
Aquaman over Batman.
exactly. It's always very surprising, his interpretation of the work. And that's a whole learning experience in itself. You're under a lot of pressure as a working artist. I mean, it's a luxury on one hand, and it's very scary on the other, because it's financially unpredictable. And I'm like trying to defend myself.
No, you don't have to defend yourself at all.
Yeah. So what I do is, like I said, I copy so much stuff. I found this picture on Tumblr, and I stenciled it, and in an effort to impress my manager in a way, I had included way too many pictures. So instead of sending him the usual 10 or 20 pictures, I sent him 40, including ones like this one piece in particular that I had not spent enough time on. It was just too much of a direct stencil from this one photo that I spent about a good half an hour on it, very little amount of time. Guess what?
He loved it.
He picked that photo.
Yeah.
He loved it, right? And then not only that, he chose it to be the headlining image. And then without me, I didn't even know which images he'd selected, and he posted it online, and immediately, within a half an hour, it got back to the photographer who took that photo, and he actually wasn't, he was very cool about it. He was kind of like, "Hey, I recognize that,"
yeah,
And I mean, he follows our model of he wasn't oh, you'll hear from our lawyers. There wasn't anything like that, but just out of I felt so bad about it, so I reached out to him, and I decided to I said, let's not sell this picture, let's take it down. It was like a work in progress thing. It was something that I really had no intention of anybody seeing that picture. I had just I'd sent it to my manager out of my own kind of insecurity of trying to bring in, it's like, have you ever done that where you email your boss or something, and then you kind of you say some of the things that you did, even though it was just I opened the door, I put something in the microwave.
Sure, yeah. It's I think we call it fluff.
Yeah, it was just fluff. Exactly. It was a doodle.
Or accompaniment to your main pieces. I can understand that.
Yeah. It was a doodle. And so that was, recently a really bad moment for me, because what happened is I had this sort of this PTSD after that, where every picture I did, I was like, oh man, is this too similar to something else? Am I going to get sued? Oh wow. And it really, for the next month or so, I was really scared to open up Photoshop and get back to my usual routine.
Sure, because I have that too. This imposter syndrome too, especially when something comes up with it. For my main project where I make the music videos, I spent 2 months just searching, and I went to the same sites over and over again where they could have been it had a similar name or something, and I was like, is anybody else doing it? And for a lot of the reasons for me, it was to let myself off the hook, so that I wouldn't have to do this thing that it was just all my brain. How would you suggest getting over that? Because we've been talking about art is imitation, and I think it's fine to take somebody else's art and to sketch it, or do your own remix of it, not necessarily make money off of it or sell it. But how do you have the courage to still do that?
That's where I lean on the music. In my case, with this particular work that I'm doing, I name the pictures after music, and I feel like I'm an unofficial representative of that. I'm kind of forcing them to be on my team. I'm forcing my way into a team. I'm saying, I represent you now. I'm selling your product now.
Right.
Just as if you were a music video director, I'm sure on your demo reel, you directed a video for a song that you weren't necessarily hired for, and just assert yourself into and do it the easy way. Do it a way that you feel comfortable doing. Like if it's like, oh, I don't have to, like I feel like I have an invisible team. Like I'm just here. I have my song name, and this is like the direction I'm going, and it's like chosen for me.
Yeah, it kind of does take the pressure off, and it's almost like it's your way of communicating back, like as a fan, like it's because like we said, it's like artist communication. It's like the artist is communicating to you or the musician or whatever, and it's like kind of your way of saying, hey up there, like exactly. This is what I think, right. Like this is what I got, right. This is what I got from what you said.
Yeah,
I think it's an important thing to do.
You just see where that goes, and how to communicate with whatever medium you're doing, whether it's visual, audio, or both.
Right. Can you tell us about your best moment, if you have one, or many?
Best moment? Yes. The best moment is sitting right next to me. It's my fiance. We met because she bought one of my pictures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. How did that happen?
What you talk about, art is communication. There you go. I mean, I did an abstract piece called Feel Something about 3 years ago. It sold to someone in Switzerland, and she liked my work, and she reached out to me on Twitter, and within a few months we were like talking regularly. We become friends, and now I'm in Germany hanging out with her family.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, that's probably the best moment I've heard so far.
Yeah. It's just, your taste, your work, these things, they communicate things about you that your words can't. I've heard something that, I heard that like 90% of communication is nonverbal.
Right.
And it's so true. I mean, we put too much value in words. It's not just words. It's how you say them. It's how. It's not the what. It's the how. That's what matters.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things in this podcasting course that I took, of course, before I just jumped into podcasting, which I kind of did. Like my episode 0 is just me talking. Like I'm just like, all right, like this is the first time I hit record or whatever. But in that course, they say how I forget what the percentage is, but you're completely right. It's like 90% non-verbal. It's how you say it and stuff. And I'm like, so it's all about, for podcasting, it's all about your voice, like you have to add extra inflection. I'm like, shit, like I have a very monotone voice. Like mm-hmm. I just kind of have this tone that I talk in like kind of all the time, and I just,
That's where you live.
So it's like a difficult thing to do, but I completely agree. And
you should listen to Gangstar.
Gangstar?
Gangstar had one of my favorite rappers of all time. His name was Guru, which stood for Gifted, Unlifted, Rhymes Universal.
Oh.
And he had a monotone voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little bit of a handicap. He wore that as like a badge of honor.
Sure.
He would rap about it all the time. He'd be like, I'm your favorite guy with the monotone voice. And we talk about like, that was something that helped me too. I mean, I was listening to him when I was a kid, and I would listen to that and I would think, oh, that's interesting how he's embracing his limitation and just kind of using it in the work itself. And I'm sure that's a big reason why his work resonated so well. I mean, he knew who he was, and there's a certain power that you get with that, with really like looking in the mirror and taking like an unflinching look at yourself and saying, this is who I am. And it's really hard in the beginning, but the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm. I think it's such good advice. That's what they tell kids who are getting bullied or something like that. It's like, make fun of yourself. Like, and I think it's just like a universal thing that like every human should do. Because if you do look at yourself in the mirror, it means that 1, you're looking at yourself honestly. 2, if you're putting it out there, how you truly feel, then you are learning so much about yourself, and you're also potentially really helping somebody else out who is like looking to you for that, and it helps them to, you know, be courageous in their own life.
And then to also the other one is don't think about that either. Like you never know in which ways you influence people or have potentially changed somebody's life. I mean, that's just the way life is. You may never find out about that. It's just simply not, it's not for you to know. You know, you're on your own journey, and you have to be kind of lovingly detached from the ego part of it, of just like, this is what I'm responsible for, and you know, thinking about the seriousness and the like, I want everything I do to be perfect. And you know, I mean, that's like the best way to not produce any work, is to think about the identity of that work. You know, it's like Nike, just do it. You do it for yourself. Do exactly what you want to do, what you want to see, right? Like, be the change, like Gandhi, right? Just create what you think the world needs. What's that? Yeah, celebrate the difference. That's really that was the last thing my grandma told me. She wrote me a card. You know, it was for Christmas, and she died shortly after. And that was the last thing in the card. She said, "Celebrate the difference." And at first, I didn't necessarily understand the meaning of that, you know, because it has such a broad kind of meaning. But I mean, as time goes on, that's been the best. Those are the best three words I've ever heard. Celebrate the difference. You know, I think a lot of people have the tendency to notice a difference. You know, they notice something. Oh, this is similar to that. And then they sort of use that. The first place your brain goes is to then use that for something negative. Oh, this is similar to that. It sucks. You know, like, this band sounds like that band. This comedian, this joke from this comedian sounds just like this joke from this comedian. And we use that, but celebrate the difference. It's obviously not going to be exactly the same. There has to be some kind of difference. You can't just, you know, duplicate the exact. It's just not how life works. So find the difference. Good job. You notice something different. But now the tough part is to celebrate it. You know,
To celebrate and to go kind of full force into it.
yeah. And you'll notice that the more you do it, the easier it gets. And you'll notice that the people, let's say, like the names that you see the most, the people who seem to be the most successful, any way you want to define that, they seem to be good at doing that. You know, I've worked with some people who were very famous, and before meeting them, I had kind of a low opinion of them, you know, and then quickly after meeting them, I discovered that, wait a second, okay, first of all, there's a reason I'm working for them, and second, and second, like, I'm completely, I mean, they knew twice as much as me.
Yeah.
You know, I realized, like, it was like a reality check. Like, it was like looking in the mirror, right? Like I need to do some homework. You know what I mean? And these people were really good at celebrating the difference. You know, they really, they found something that, oh, what's this? And it's like they stayed positive all the time, because so much of creativity is, it's like capturing lightning in a bottle. You can't really control the lightning. So what you have to do is you have to create an environment to capture the lightning, you know, create the best environment for your work, which, by the way, is back to my interest in plants, like palm trees. You know, you don't tell a tree how to grow. You just water it, and then it grows. That's how creativity is. It's like, we don't really choose what it is that we contribute. We just create the necessary environment for that to grow in.
And then the task is just watering it.
Yeah,
It's just,
it'll tell you what it wants to do. It'll do exactly what it's supposed to. You know what I mean? You know, I mean, Steve Jobs had been digesting something like the iPhone or the iPad for 30 years, and he just had to create that kind of environment, which was Apple, for that to grow, and no pun intended, but that's how it works.
Dude, this has been insane. This has been this is also the first podcast that almost made me cry.
Oh, Granny Cherry, man.
All right, so this whole thing has been like one giant push. This has been awesome, but could you give us one final push? And that's where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab somebody you have already inspired today and kind of give them that final push into doing their creative endeavor.
Okay, whoever needs inspiration, I give you permission to create something. End of story. Yes.
You have been blessed.
You have been blessed. You have a free pass to do whatever the fuck you want to do.
So you're going to have a lot of people emailing you, telling you something went terribly wrong. And you are the one that gave me permission.
What I usually tell people is, whatever their name is Michael, I say, be nicer to Michael. Because I find that we're really, especially as creatives, we can be really hard on ourselves.
For sure. So you got to give yourself that forgiveness.
Yeah. Be nicer to Michael.
Be nicer to yourself. All right, Alex. You can find Alex on his website, which is alexcherry.com. On Facebook, he is Of Sound and Vision. On Instagram, he is ax.cy. And on Twitter, he is _axcy. Alex, thank you so much. This has been just an awesome conversation. And thank you so much for, I know you're in Germany and having a great family time and meeting your fiance's family and spending time with them. So I appreciate that and thank her for sticking in with with us so long here.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. It's been a really big pleasure talking to you as well, Michael.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Embrace the difference, people. Huge thank you to Alex for coming on the show. This was one of those interviews that turned into a real conversation, and I just felt so energized when I was done talking to Alex. It's funny, on my Instagram account, I make these images that are really nothing more than, motivational quotes that the guests have said on the episode, and usually I make 3, 4, or 5, depending on how long the episode is and, just how many bite-sized quotes, I can pull out. And for this particular interview, I ended up with 14 quotes. They're all in the show notes, and I ended up making not quite 14 for the Instagram account, but it just goes to show how much good stuff was in there in this 2-part interview. So we really appreciate Alex, all the words of wisdom, and really opening up and being honest about his art and his career and his life. Hopefully it inspired you to get going on your work. You have Alex's permission to start, and you have my permission, as you already know, to go and get started. Just want to quickly say thank you to the Exit Coach, who wrote on iTunes that he loves this podcast with his 5-star review. And he said it's always necessary to get that extra push. Wonderful show. T. Basu said, unleash your creativity. They say we are all born creative, but somewhere along the way, many of us learn to suppress that creativity. This podcast is a great resource for helping you unleash the creativity you have inside you and hear the inspiring stories of other creative individuals. Check it out. And Coach Phaedra said, I'm a hard sell to actually hit subscribe. This one is a no-brainer. Youngman Brown is bringing guests from all over the world, and the diversity is brain candy. This is a must-listen show. So thank you so much to all of you for your ratings and reviews. If you want to leave us a rating and review, I would really appreciate it. It is the best thing you can do to help out the show. As I did with these reviews, I'll read it on the air because I really appreciate it. On tomorrow's show, we have Mikey Burton.
Is you just have to start. It doesn't have to be some grandiose thing. You don't have to say, I'm going to do this every day. This creative, exercise I'm going to do every day. It's just you need to start today in just a little way. Maybe it's 5 minutes of your day, maybe it's 10 minutes every day. But if you want to change where you are creatively, I think you just need to start now and see where it goes.
Mikey is an awesome graphic designer that was kind enough to come on to the show to give us that push. But hopefully for today and the rest of this weekend, you were able to be pushed into doing your creative work with this bonus episode. So thank you so much for listening and subscribing. I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. Be productive, and I will catch you on Monday. Have a great weekend.